Hi, this is Doctors Newtopia, and this is Lovolution Village. I want to thank two of my friends who actually came down to the studio and are in the audience right now. So that is so fine. I wish more people would come, then we'd actually have a village here. And perhaps we could start making statements about how we want this country to change. And it's not just the country, it's the world. I have been studying about global climate change for the last couple of days in preparing myself for this wonderful march that is going to be happening tomorrow starting at Himmel Library at 9 o'clock. People are going to march to Bookman's in protest of our governments not doing anything to stop the burning of CO2. And we're in a fossil fuel economy. And that's what's destroying us since the Industrial Revolution, since we started having mass production of things like automobiles and driving around in our cars. It's killing us. We have polluted the planet to the point where we're facing extinction. Now, I realize that is a hard idea for people to get your mind around of, because it is a collective problem. Today, I was riding back from my yoga class, and I started thinking about what extinction really means. Well, it's not like death, and it's not like, of course, birth and the whole cycle of life and death. It's something else. And we haven't experienced it before because we haven't gone extinct. Religions don't really know how to deal with it because it's never happened before. We've never faced this kind of emergency in the history of our species. And now it's taken some time for us to be able to look closely at what we've been doing. But now we can see it because we have the technology to see it, we have the science to see it, and we have pictures of the planet from outer space. So we can actually see pollution, whether it's in the ocean or whether it's out in the atmosphere. It's everywhere. Naomi Klein has just written a new book on capitalism and global climate change. She's been doing interviews, which I have read and seen, and I think that she makes some great points that you have to stop capitalism or radically change it if we want to save the climate. Now, why is that? Well, it's because capitalism is basically going to exploit all the natural resources in order for us to make money. And this money system, this greed system, is one that is like a bottomless pit. And you can we're just digging our grave. We might as well just jump into the hole that we have dug and cover it up, because that's like what we're doing. We are killing ourselves. And it's a collective death. And that's why it's different than death, is because it's not like death at all. The species just no longer exists. So how do we get out of this? Well, Naomi Klein suggests that we need a resistance movement. The only thing that's going to change the problem that we have is a mass movement, is a resistance. We need blockades to block things like logging, because cutting down of the forest is one of the problems. The forests take in carbon dioxide, so it is a carbon sink, much like the plankton in the ocean. It also takes in carbon when it does photosynthesis, because that's how it gets energy, is through photosynthesis. And then once the plankton die, they sink and they go to the bottom of the seabed. And after thousands of years, millions of years, these small little creatures add up to creating petroleum. And that's why they call it fossil fuel. And then human beings want to get that fossil fuel, and then they burn it and they put it into the atmosphere. And so that is what is causing the imbalance. I realize that we have to know a lot of biology to realize what this carbon cycle is about and how we are made up of the carbon atom. We cannot exist without it. We are carbon. But if we destroy the balance of this cycle, then we can create a runaway planet, runaway greenhouse. Now, some scientists think that we are at the tipping point right now. Tipping point means that we go into this runaway global greenhouse gas hell. If you look at the other planets, if you look at Venus or you look at Mars, they don't have atmospheres. They're different than Earth in that way. Earth has an atmosphere, and that atmosphere has this cycle. It has a water cycle or hydro cycle that keeps the temperature at a state that it can sustain life, where the other planets don't have that water cycle, so they cannot sustain life. Some scientists think that at one point Mars had an atmosphere. It had water. It had running water. And something happened to that atmosphere. You know, who knows? Maybe we were actually Martians and we destroyed that world. We destroyed the atmosphere of that world. We were sophisticated enough to seed the planet Earth, and then we moved here. So now we're doing the same thing. This week, I saw a CNN report about NASA wanting to have missions to Mars because they want to settle Mars. Now, why do you think that's happening? Could it be because we're destroying this atmosphere and they want an escape route? And I say they because it's going to be the rich people who can afford a ticket to Mars to be in part of that colony that seeds Mars with the bacteria needed to create a climate, a livable atmosphere. Well, this sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? That we're destroying one biosphere, the Earth, and then we have the technology to go to another planet, Mars, and start another settlement. Well, that's not going to work for the 6 billion of us on this planet. So that's why it is very necessary for everyone to get with it. You know, like wake up your mind. This affects you. This affects generations to come if we want it to come. If we want to save life on Earth, then it's going to have to be a collective movement. It's going to have to be a grassroots effort to save breath. Now, why I say save breath is because we're destroying the oxygen supply on planet Earth. Why? Because the plankton in the ocean, they are responsible for 50% of our oxygen supply. And the rainforest of the world supply us with 20%. So when we're cutting down the rainforest of the world, and when we are destroying the oceans, because the plankton have to have a certain temperature, water temperature, in order to thrive. And they have to have the right nutrients in order to thrive. And when we change the water temperature in the ocean, it changes the currents. The currents, these conveyor belts of water that happen in the ocean. And when that happens, then the nutrient cycle gets changed as well. So it's a lot of biology, isn't it? And where are all of our biology teachers who should be talking about this? So, with a destroyed biosphere, people are getting sick. And that's why we have so many strange diseases and illnesses, and people's immunity systems are shot, is because our food supply is not as nutritious as it should be. And many of our foods are genetically modified, which are causing people to get sick. There's additives in our food. It all gets back to food. And how we change society is that we have to change the way that we eat. I was just at a demonstration for the Fight for 15 that happened about a couple of weeks ago at the Burger King. There is a national movement of fast food workers who are sick of being exploited with low wages. They're calling it wage theft because the CEOs of these corporations like Burger King or McDonald's are making, I don't know how many times more than the average fast food worker. So what the fast food workers want is to be able to unionize, and they want $15 an hour. Well, I really think that that's not enough. How I see this movement changing is that we need to stop the corporations from feeding us because they're not doing it well. They don't care about nutrition. And everyone needs to eat organic food, not just the rich people, it's the poor as well. You know, this has got to be egalitarian, the way that we eat. So my vision is that the fight for the union is good and the fight for 15 is good, but let's not stop there. Let's actually create a slow food movement, take back these fast food joints or take them over, and make them community centers. We need to bulldoze the parking lots to get rid of all that concrete and then put some soil in there and start growing gardens. Then we can have a basis for organic food. And with the slow food movement comes a way for us to reorganize our lifestyles so that we can have community again. This fast food culture has also created a fast civilization of everybody running around the rat race, running around to their jobs that we really don't need, polluting the atmosphere with fossil fuels because you're driving around in your car. And so that's part of this, very evil, ignorant system. that is causing the global warming. To change global warming is that we have to create a green lifestyle. And that's the fun part, and the hard part is the transformation of society from the fossil fuel economy into the solar alternative economy. Now, there are some wonderful visionaries who are talking about what that new civilization looks like. And the vision that I hold in my heart is one of really a transformation of our industrialized cities into, like, leaping into a different kind of city design. For one, it needs to be a new container for the slow foods and the good society. The good society meaning the egalitarian society, and a society where people can determine the kind of work they want to do. Want work that's good for all of humanity. So we probably will not have many more fast food workers in this kind of world, because who really wants to do that work? It's much more enjoyable to have time with your children and to do art and music and have time to build relationships. That's the kind of world we need to build. And I think the only kind of world that we're going to be able to survive the crisis that we're in. But it is a crisis, and it's going to take a mobilization to do on not just a national level, on a planetary level. If you think of these scientists who are doing these world models on global climate change, they don't look at just one nation state in their models. These are world systems. So we have to think in terms of a global system as well, and the atmosphere and the hydrosphere and the soil. We have to think of all these different spheres and how they work together, they're integrated together. And when we start seeing the model of how the planet actually functions, then we can understand the way that these new ecological cities must function, because they biomimic nature in the way that they're designed. I think human beings are going to have to be as sophisticated as bees. You know, we have to start thinking about living in close contact with each other in peaceful ways. You know, no longer war. And we certainly know that living in urban sprawl does not create peace. It is what has caused these terrible wars of the 20th century, this fight for oil that was continuing in Iraq, resource wars. And I think we can get rid ourselves of this terrible war as we have this integrated system that looks towards the sun, like the photoplankton, uses that sun as our energy source, realizes that water is sacred. We can't pollute the water with any industrial waste. And so these cities that I visualize will have it so that no industry will be polluting the ocean or the streams or the lakes. There's just so I guess I just feel like meditating now because I've said a lot. I want us to live in a new way. I think we can do it. We have the skill to do it. We have the talent. We have the genius. If we can find the queendom of love, perhaps we will understand the way that nature works. We'll find the partnerships and the allies to be able to manifest the salvation. Because I really think this is a new planetary ecological spirituality. You might say it's a religion in that it's an organization, this planetary system. And so I'm asking you to be prophetess and prophets of Levolution. You can see I'm losing my voice. And I forgot to bring my water, the most precious thing of all, and I forget it. So I'm going to take a couple of deep breaths here and hope I hope I live to see this change. Because we are at the critical moment that either we're going to evolve into a new species with a new container of life, or we're going to go extinct. You think death was bad? I bet extinction is a lot worse. Death, to me, is looking really good. You know, you just decay, and then you cycle back into the earth. Where this extinction thing, all of our karma, all of our genius, all of our art, all of our architecture, everything, all our knowledge is lost. But if we can't overcome our greed and the way we're living now, humanity does not deserve to live. And somewhere in our hearts we know that. So we're at this like juncture. Are we going to become cosmic species or not? Are we going to be able to overcome war and inequality or not? Are we going to find the new pattern of existence or not? Are we going to, each one of us, find this new story and connect to it or not? Are we all going to be myth makers and join that march tomorrow or not? So let's hope we get a critical mass tomorrow at Himmel Library and walk together to stop the insanity. So I leave you with meditations, prayers, whatever. Let's stop the extinction. Let's build our ecologies, ecological architectures. Let's start listening to women. Let's start listening to the indigenous people. Let's save the planet. Why not? What else do we have? Well, time is ticking. It's ticking real slow right now for me, but it's ticking real fast for the planet and for our species. From my heart to your heart, I hope I see you tomorrow at Himmel Park. And let's march side by side. Blessings. Peace. Please stop now. Eric. It's supposed to be finished now.
Is there something I could do?
No, he's got to turn off the camera.
Is everything out there?
Yeah, he's out there. You know, they're really understaffed. When I first started here, they had like just twice as many staff people. They cut them 50%. It's been really sad, you know, what's happened to this TV station.
Well, the budget went from
Yeah,
several million or a million
about $1 million. Yeah,
down
when,
to what, 100,000?
so now they're going to start charging people. I just paid them some money, you know, to be producers. And, you know, maybe that will keep them going. And then they're going to start looking for private sources. Yeah, go find him because he needs to turn that off. Oh.